Oh. Well, after you.
Why? So you can stab me in the back?
No, because it's polite. Aunt Lucy said if we're kind and polite, the world will be right.
I'm dreadfully sorry, I don't actually know your name.
Well, I've got a bear name, but it seems to be rather hard to pronounce.
Or perhaps you'd like an English name?
An English name? Like what?
Often referred to as the father of positive psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman and his colleagues conducted a series of studies known as positive interventions. One study that particularly stood out was called Fun and Philanthropy. In this research, he had his undergraduates engage in something enjoyable, followed by an act of philanthropy. The results indicated that while enjoyable activities are perceived as momentary, philanthropic activities offer more life satisfaction. In the Paddington films, Aunt Lucy taught Paddington to be around the grumpiest folk and have kindness as his central foundation. Her optimistic sentiments were never oblivious, but rather a wake-up call to those without a grateful spirit to hold on to. A helping hand and some kind manners are the least anyone can offer. And with Paddington, doing so unleashed a lasting impression on the neighborhood, the Browns, and quite frankly, his well-being. To better understand his character, I wanted to explore the psychology of kindness through two sides of an incredibly different marmalade sandwich, both of which taste quite interesting. Let's begin with Chapter 1. Learned Helplessness. For those who don't know, learned helplessness occurs when an individual faces a consistently stressful situation that eventually leads to an emotional paralysis. Everything around them moves at a rhythm they can't match. We observe this through the character of Mr. Brown. Living in the restless streets of London, he is unable to shed his rebellious past when the reality of children strikes him like an unwanted bullseye. This inevitably creates a fear of new challenges and leads him to numb himself to work and his family. The people around him face the same issue. They hide their authenticity because a mundane and isolated environment fails to motivate or impact change. When the Browns first meet Paddington, he receives a mixed welcome. Mrs. Brown and Jonathan are quite taken by his charm, while Judy and Mr. Brown initially are not, for entirely different reasons. Judy doesn't want to be seen as weird at her new school, and Mr. Brown fears chaos might ensue with something as unusual as a bear, which even in an extraordinary world seems somewhat justified. However, as the film commences, Judy grows fond of him when she realizes how cool his kindness is, relating to his feelings of being an outsider. And by the end of the film, Mr. Brown understands how much Paddington has brought so much care into their lives. But what's interesting to me is how much learned helplessness Paddington could have cultivated from his tragic beginnings. Losing his parents at a young age and his uncle after a horrendous storm, these two occurrences motivated Aunt Lucy to provide Paddington with another course of action.
You must find a new home.
But I don't know anyone there. What if they don't even like bears?
They will not have forgotten how to treat a stranger.
How she raised him doesn't make him helpless, but rather helpful. Some people see Paddington's innocence as a weakness, yet his purity is actually infectious. His first encounters with the people in London stem from his persistence. He consistently tried to make a good impression and never skipped a beat when they rejected him. And as hours passed, instead of him feeling deflated, his first thought was,
Must be doing something wrong.
when in reality, it's them. His smile, demeanor, and willingness to bring kindness to a town devoid of this gracefully illustrates his character. Studies show that those who brighten someone else's day can bring happiness to themselves as well. This process is known as self-compassion, which involves giving yourself enough gratitude and fostering greater confidence in showing compassion to others. An example includes Paddington doing everything he could to return the gentleman's wallet. Unbeknownst to him, the man had stolen dozens of wallets, and amusingly enough, regardless of the context, he did the right thing. The reason this illustrates his self-compassion is that he recognized the dangers of losing something as valuable as a wallet due to one belief.
I just did what any bear would do.
The purpose of Paddington's character has always been to connect with others and create something meaningful. He was raised with a sensibility that everyone deserves a smile instead of suffering. This commitment to helping others without expecting anything in return defines the essence of his character. As Seligman once mentioned, an act of kindness is the single most reliable momentary increase in well-being of any exercise we have tested. Chapter 2. Learned Optimism. During my research, I developed a theory that evaluates the difference between being nice and being kind. And it's that being nice involves letting things happen, while being kind involves making things happen. To me, being nice is all about the bystander effect. Whether it's a lack of confrontation with others or even standing up for yourself, in a way, a nice person can often be seen as more submissive. For instance, if Paddington were nice, he wouldn't have said this.
I'm sorry. I'm finding this a very stressful working environment.
Or he wouldn't have done the infamous hard stare. He genuinely believes in what he values. A supportive community with well-suited manners to everyone, regardless of whether they deserve it. Kindness doesn't stem from being naive, but rather from your conviction to shape things into something meaningful. As psychologist Orion Taraban of PsycHacks once stated, authentic acts of kindness are about loving honesty. At the beginning of Paddington 2, he brings himself to everyone's routine in a way that brightens their moods. Seligman referred to this as learned optimism, which is the principle of cultivating enough goodwill that inevitably inspires others. And again, there can be an argument that being optimistic means being blindly positive, which, in my opinion, simply isn't the case. Because to be optimistic about the world is to be aware that something needs to change. In the second film, Paddington's main motivation is to give Aunt Lucy a birthday gift, and as soon as he sees the pop-up book, he realizes how much it would mean to her. So with his learned optimism, he cleans windows around town even if some folks don't even pay him, tries to catch the thief who stole her gift, and even making prison feel friendly. His learned optimism and kindness drive things forward. Even though he's wrongly accused, treated poorly, about to be stuffed, or frequently threatened, his values and beliefs are deeply ingrained and continuously pursued. And in both films, you can feel how lonely the streets are without Paddington. Similar to the first film shot with the leaves on the tree painting fading from the Browns' house. This reflects how a radiant presence can be felt when it disappears. Another moment of contrast occurs when the second film starts with a backstory. Aunt Lucy and the late Uncle Pastuzo discuss a potential trip to London. But as soon as they save a little Paddington running down a river, she knew London had to wait. Her presence gave him the kind manners that brought him to London and the Browns. And when nearing the end of the film, a similar situation happens to him where he's stuck inside a boxcar underwater, and Mrs. Brown dives into the river to rescue him. As they budge the lock and attempt to tear the doors open, it seems to them that there is no hope. But as luck may have its way, his friends from prison offered the brute force they needed. It's remarkable to see how much love and care Paddington brought to others and how much that love is reciprocated. Having kindness allows our place in this world to have much more to say. This affirming legacy we can all leave behind. A community of people, big or small. And though none will ever compete with a heart like Paddington's, we can always try. When someone else's world crumbles, we can lift them up and gather all their broken pieces. Because in our kind gestures, we can mend as much as we can and provide as much as we have. And while it's not our moral duty to commit to acts of kindness on a second-to-second basis, always keep it in mind. Lending a smile shouldn't be a chore for you, but a declaration of our need to bring ease to those we surround ourselves with. Our impact is only inspired by creating moments that can spread into movements. A movement to care, embrace, and make simple gestures that change someone else's day. like helping a friend pass a test, reminding them to grab their keys, or being honest with what they have to improve. What more could we ask for? What more could there be? Kindness can last through every harmonious beat in your step as you prance around your neighborhood, a wake-up call to an otherwise grumpy morning. The sight of kindness allows for moments we can all appreciate, because in times of helplessness, we must cultivate and share our optimism to the world, because by the end, you won't be the only one doing the heavy lifting. So I'll rephrase the quote Paddington mentioned in the introduction as a question. If we're kind and polite, would the world be right? I would only hope so.
I think Paddington is a very positive character. You know, he's got a real open heart and open spirit, and sort of he changes the people around him through that because he's such an open-hearted, generous soul. He sort of brings out the best in other people.
He looks for the good in all of us, and somehow he finds it. It's why he makes friends wherever he goes. And it's why Windsor Gardens is a happier place whenever he's around. So stand aside, Mr. Curry, 'cause we're coming through.
Paddington.
Happy birthday, Aunt Lucy.